I am not a soldier. Not anymore. Once, I carried the flag of Earth into places no sane man would willingly set foot. I've walked through cities burning under alien suns. I've seen battlefields where the ground itself was still screaming. I was trained to fight, yes, but more than that, I was trained to stop a fight before it began. War, in my mind, was never a victory. If it happened, it was because someone like me had failed. That's why they chose me for this assignment. Not because I was the deadliest human they could find, but because I understood restraint. Because I knew that sometimes the most dangerous weapon you can carry into a room is patience. When the call came, I was in the Terran embassy on Ventha Prime, enjoying a rare moment of quiet. The light through the glass was a soft amber, and the hum of the city outside was almost hypnotic. Then the door burst open. 2 Concord security officers strode in, their armor glinting under the sterile lights. One of them didn't speak, just gestured for me to follow. The shuttle was waiting on the rooftop. Inside stood Ambassador Ren Vara, the most skilled negotiator the Concord had left. Her posture was calm, her eyes sharp, but I could see the tension at the corners of her mouth. "We're going to Carver Station," she said. Her voice was measured, but it wasn't the voice of someone going to a diplomatic meeting. It was the voice of someone walking into a predator's den. I nodded once, taking my seat beside her. As the engines roared to life, she glanced at me. "Today, you are not my guard," she said softly. "Today, you are my last resort." I didn't yet know how true those words would be. Carver Station floated in the void like a relic from another age, its vast spires and angular plating silhouetted against the faint, dying light of a swollen red star. From the viewport of our shuttle, I could see the scars of old battles etched into its hull. Patches of mismatched metal and welded seams told a story of survival, not beauty. When we docked, the airlock hissed open and a wave of smells hit me: rust, ozone, and something faintly organic, like damp stone. The corridors were dim, lit by strips of pale light that flickered at irregular intervals. Our escort, 2 Dravari guards in black armor, didn't speak a word as they led us toward the grand hall. Their footfalls echoed, heavy and deliberate, as if each step was meant to remind us that we were deep in their territory. The hall itself was a display of dominance. Towering banners of the Dravari Empire hung from the rafters, the black sigil stitched in silver thread seeming to glare down at us. Across from them, the fractured blue crest of the galactic Concord flickered weakly on a cracked holo-display, its light stuttering like a dying heartbeat. The Dravari had arranged the seating so that their leaders sat elevated, looking down on us. The ambassador and I were placed at a long table below, as if we were petitioners before a throne. I could feel their eyes on me, the way they lingered not just on the ambassador, but on the human standing at her side. Every detail of the room was deliberate: the absence of weapons on display, the sharp angles of the architecture, the faint hum of energy shielding behind the walls. This wasn't a place built for peace. It was a place designed to remind visitors they were surrounded. And the message was clear: we were here at their mercy. The Dravari High Warlord rose from his seat with a slow, deliberate motion, his armor plates shifting against one another with a sound like grinding stone. He was massive, even for his kind, a creature built for war, with chitinous ridges along his skull and shoulders that caught the dim light like black glass. When he spoke, his voice reverberated through the hall, each word carrying the weight of authority and threat. "You come to us unarmed," he said, his mandibles flexing as he studied us. "You are prey, and prey does not dictate terms." Ambassador Vara's expression did not change. Her hands rested lightly on the table, her voice smooth and calm when she replied. "If you kill us here, you will have your war, but it will be the last war you ever fight." The hall erupted with hissing laughter from the Dravari delegates, the sound echoing like a swarm of blades scraping over stone. The warlord's eyes narrowed, and his gaze slid toward me. "Your fleets are scattered. Your soldiers are weak. You bring only one human. Is this your mighty threat?" Every gaze followed his, pinning me under their attention. I stood motionless, my breathing slow, my face unreadable. The nearest guard, a towering Dravari with jagged armor and scarred mandibles, stepped forward until his shadow fell across me. "You will kneel, human," he growled, the tip of his claw tapping against the floor. "Kneel, or we break you." I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Instead, I let the corner of my mouth curl upward in the faintest hint of a smile. Not a challenge. Not yet. But enough to make the nearest Dravari's posture tighten, because even predators know when prey is looking back at them without fear. When I finally spoke, my voice was quiet, almost conversational, but it carried in the tense silence. "Do you know what happens when humans are threatened?" The guard's mandibles clicked in irritation. You die. I took a single step forward, slow and deliberate, and the shift in the room was immediate. Conversations stopped. The faint hum of the station's machinery seemed louder in the sudden stillness. My boots made a soft, deliberate sound on the polished floor as I closed the distance between us. Wrong, I said, my tone calm but edged with steel. We calculate. I didn't go for my weapon. That would have been predictable. Instead, I moved with purpose, 3 steps in total, weaving through the space like I'd done 1,000 times before in situations that could turn lethal in an instant. 1 step to the left to break the line of sight from the nearest archer drone. Another forward to place myself between the High Warlord, the Ambassador, and the choke point at the hall's only exit. The last to my right, lining up with the primary support strut I'd noticed the moment we walked in. It was instinct. Pattern recognition. Every corner of the room mapped in my head, every angle, every threat, every opportunity. Humans didn't evolve in safe places. We learned to see danger before it struck, and to move so that when it came, we were already in the position to end it. I could feel their eyes tracking me, the subtle shift of their stances as they realized I wasn't reacting to them. I was positioning them. The guard loomed over me now, taller by a head, breathing sharp and fast. I didn't look up at him. My attention was already on the others. Because in my experience, the first one to move was rarely the real threat. It began with a sound so small most in the hall didn't notice, the whisper of metal sliding against a sheath. But my ears caught it instantly. A Dravari captain, positioned 2 seats from the High Warlord, moved with a predator's speed toward the Ambassador. His blade was long, serrated, designed not just to cut but to tear. He never made it. My hand shot up in a blur, palm striking the side of his jaw with the precision of a hammer blow. The impact cracked his carapace with a sickening snap, and his legs buckled. He was unconscious before his body hit the floor. That was second 1. By second 20, the room had erupted. 2 guards lunged at me from opposite angles, their claws flashing. I sidestepped the first, using his momentum to send him crashing into the second. My elbow came down hard on the back of his neck, 1 down, then I pivoted, twisting the other's arm until his weapon clattered to the floor. By second 60, I had moved again, faster than they could adapt. The Dravari expected me to aim my emitter at them, but instead, I leveled it upward, at the massive support strut arching over the High Warlord's throne. I didn't need to fire. They could all see the stress fractures running through the metal. They understood what would happen if I did. By second 90, the noise in the hall had gone eerily quiet. The guards froze, the Warlord's mandibles twitching as his eyes locked with mine. There was no bluff to read, no fear to exploit, only the cold certainty that I would do exactly what I aimed to do. By second 180, he gave the order. Stand down. The war ended without a single shot fired. The official word came hours later, but the truth was decided in that hall. The Dravari wouldn't risk a war with a species that could send 1 human into a room full of warriors and leave with their highest leader silent. Fear was an effective deterrent, but it wasn't fear of the weapon in my hand, it was fear of the mind that held it. As we walked back through the station's dim corridors toward our shuttle, the Dravari escort didn't meet my eyes. Their heavy footsteps were slower now, less certain, as if they too understood that something had shifted. The banners and architecture that had seemed so imposing before now felt like a hollow performance, a predator's roar when its teeth had already been broken. In the shuttle, the tension bled away in quiet waves. The hum of the engines was almost soothing compared to the charged silence of the Grand Hall. Ambassador Vara sat across from me, her posture finally relaxing, though her eyes remained locked on mine. "You were supposed to be my bodyguard," she said, her voice low, almost unreadable. "Not my executioner." I shook my head slowly. "No one died." She tilted her head, her gaze sharpening. "No. But you showed them how easily they could. Sometimes, that is more dangerous than killing." Her words hung in the air between us as the stars outside began to blur into streaks, the shuttle entering faster than light travel. I leaned back in my seat, my pulse steady, the events replaying in my mind. It wasn't about strength. It wasn't about speed. It was about making them understand that starting a fight with humans meant gambling everything, and that we don't play games we can't win. Word traveled faster than any ship. By the time we reached Concord space, the story had already taken on a life of its own. In the markets of Ventha Prime, in the shadowed bars of Korath, in the whispered corridors of neutral ports, they spoke of the human who ended a war without firing a shot. The details shifted with each retelling. In some versions, I shattered the throne. In others, I broke the High Warlord's arm. But the core of it remained. One human walked into the Dravari court, and the Dravari walked away from war. I wasn't a soldier anymore, but I understood what this meant. Reputation was its own weapon, sharper than any blade and harder to defend against. For the Dravari, the idea that humans could be so calculated, so precise, would weigh heavier than any fleet the Concord could muster. Every time they considered aggression, they'd remember the moment one of their most feared leaders ordered his warriors to stand down, and why. Ambassador Vara understood it too. In the days that followed, she moved with a new authority in diplomatic circles, her voice carrying the unspoken reminder that she had stood in the center of the storm and emerged untouched. When she introduced me now, it was never just as a bodyguard. It was as the human star. For my part, I didn't seek the attention. I'd seen too many so-called legends burn out under the weight of their own myth. But I couldn't deny the truth. Sometimes, one moment, one act, can rewrite the balance of power. We don't start wars. It's not in our nature to seek destruction. But when someone forces our hand, when the choice is survival or extinction, we don't just fight. We finish it.